Hey there, Sean here. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I'll be taking you through the process behind my latest oil painting, Flash of Blue, a layered piece inspired by the flash of colour and motion in one of my favourite birds, the Kingfisher. So before we dive in, quick heads up, if you'd like to see the full real-time painting session, no edits, just some peaceful music, and the whole thing from start to finish, that's now on Patreon. There's also exclusive content I don't share anywhere else online. I'll leave a link in the description below. Check it out after this video. Also, as of filming this, the original painting is available on my site. There are open edition prints too. Pop the link in the description below if you're curious. I'm working on Belgian linen, and it's a fine weave oil primes unstretched canvas that's been pinned to a large MDF board. This is the second time that I've worked on this surface, and I really like it. Now, I can't remember the size of the top of my head, so I'm going to leave a little pop-up right here. And I finished this painting in 3 layers, 2 layers for the background and 3 layers on the birds, and I had an absolute blast creating this little guy. Now, I'll tell you a little story before I go into the technical aspects of this painting. I first painted a Kingfisher back in 2020 using acrylics. It was actually my first acrylic painting of a Kingfisher, and I attempted it. I think it was about a 21-inch canvas vertical. I'll put the artwork on the screen here now, and it was done in acrylics, and I had a blast painting that. However, I felt like I was overworking the actual piece before. Working with acrylics, I tend to overwork paintings because of the drying time. I know that acrylic paint can dry very fast, so I would layer and layer and layer and layer, and that's not what I want to do. So I think about halfway through I posted a picture on my Instagram of this Kingfisher, and somebody bought it. So the buyer was happy halfway through the actual from the progress picture that I uploaded to Instagram. So I finished the painting in quite detailed, but I really like the abstraction kind of feel around the backgrounds when you can take sort of elements of colours from the bird and kind of direct it into the background. And I love abstraction and realism mixed together in the same piece. And that bird flew to the north of the UK, and the buyer was very happy. So after that, after a couple more acrylic paintings, I decided to jump into oils, and I've been painting with oils ever since. So with oils, I know it's a very forgiving medium, but also you've got time to let it breathe and sit. So you can paint a layer and you can kind of let them sit down and think about which direction you're going to go into and how far you want to detail. So I'm using Liquin Original in this painting, and there is a slight toxicity, but I've come to find that Liquin Original or Liquin Fine Detail is the best oil painting medium around. My studio is very well ventilated, and I use it in very small doses, but I make sure to use it in all of my paint mixes in all layers, roughly about the same ratio. Now, as I said, I painted this in 3 layers. 3 layers in the birds and 2 layers on the backgrounds. Each one of those layers has about the same amount of liquid, and it just keeps those layers really flexible and speeds up the drying time of the oil paints. My colour palette is very basic. I'm using, from the top of my head, titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, cobalt turquoise, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and I think a little bit of quinacridone magenta. That's it. And I'm playing with that mad mix and balance of abstraction and realism without going too far with the realism. I think colour isn't as important as values. Values are more important. Values are how dark and light your subject is, and I really like brushwork. So soft edges, hard edges, blended edges, and I really like having the ability to choose what I want my painting to look like with those kind of edges and brush quality. Now, in parallel to brushes, I am a sucker for palette knives and catalyst wedge. And my catalyst wedge pretty much created this entire background using a bit of that liquid original, because I don't use any terps to thin down the paint. I just use a bit of that liquid original, and you cannot get something, well, I believe, as something as fairly unpredictable and textured as you can with the palette knife or the catalyst wedge. Now, granted, those two tools are slightly different. That catalyst wedge is kind of something between a palette knife and a squeegee, and I absolutely adore it because it is fairly unpredictable, but you get some incredible texture. And I played around with pressure and kind of picking up the paint, kind of scooping up the paint towards the end of the session, the 2 sessions, and kind of really like blending certain areas in and having some certain areas not blended. So that was when I would use the palette knife for that. So since the linen is unstretched, it's pinned down on a really heavy duty MDF large wood panel, so I'm able to sort of really be quite vigorous with the paint, with the actual painting when I'm pushing paint around. So I really wanted to capture and really blend out certain areas, and this oil primed linen allowed me to create this kind of atmospheric kind of background that kind of blurs in certain areas, because this bird is obviously flying. I wanted to try and capture that movement, and fair enough, I could have kind of broken it up a little bit more, but didn't want to. I felt like the background has all of the broken necessary kind of abstraction that I wanted, that kind of blurs away and has a little bit of kind of hard edges around. But yeah, the idea was to kind of get that bird to pop, but not too much popping. So regarding my brushes, I primarily use the Ivory Flats from Rosemary & Co. I'll leave a link in the description below. You can get your hands on some of those. They are awesome. Now, being obviously fairly careful not to overblend everything, I kind of want that mad balance of kind of blending, making something look realistic and not realistic, so realistic, if that makes sense. Let me try and explain. So I want to kind of blend out my shadows a little bit more, keeping them fairly thin, and that doesn't mean me using lots of medium to dilute the paint. It kind of means scrubbing in to the surface more and blending not so much, but I like to blend the wet colors together. So I wouldn't just usually paint something and then get a blending brush and kind of feather it all out. I might do in certain areas. For example, if you can see the top part of the wing behind, that could be considered kind of feathered out slightly after I painted it. But I like to do a lot of blending with the colors that are kind of quite wet, and I will then keep my highlights fairly thick, and I would again kind of gradually build up that within the 3 layers of the bird. So my thickest highlight would be pretty much done with paintbrush with thicker paint, or using a palette knife, which I would then just layer on with like a kind of impasto way. So that'd be my brightest kind of tone and highlight. That would be really, really thick and impastoed paint application. So you may have noticed that in my previous tutorials and, well, videos in general on YouTube, that I work on wood panels, and I absolutely love working on wood panels, and I'm not going to stop working on wood panels, especially when it comes to sort of tutorials and demonstrations and that. And you can get some amazing effects on the wood panels, especially when you're using the non-absorbent acrylic primer. However, this surface, especially when it's pinned to a hard board, when it's unstretched, is a very nice, interesting archival surface. It's more archival than MDF wood panels, hence why this is finished artwork that I want to showcase on my website. This is the second finished artwork that I'm currently building up, a new collection, and Going back to technique, I don't like working on stretch canvases. I feel like they bounce and I'm scared that I'm going to rip it because as I said earlier, I'm quite can be quite vicious sometimes when I'm using that catalyst wedge or palette knife. So kind of like to have that that unstretched canvas, whether it be cotton or linen. Linen is preferably better, especially for collectors, but kind of like to have that stuck on the board. Now, I don't use any sort of masking tape. I find that archival tape is too expensive, so what I do is I pin it down with drawing pins. I leave a 7cm border that will enable the collector to stretch it on bars. And also, it's just so much easier to ship a painting rolled in a plastic tube. I could spend a few hours wrapping a small painting and worry that it's going to get damaged. But this will just roll around some archival paper and a few other bits and bobs and just place it in the tube and send it off. It's so much simpler, it's so much safer, and it's very cost effective too when it comes to shipping paintings. So I really had a fantastic time painting this, and I really enjoyed letting the layers dry. Usually a few days. I let it dry for about 5 or 6 days between each painting session, and so I can really sort of look at it and with a fresh pair of eyes I can step back from it, I can get up close, I can work out what I want to change. But I didn't spend too many hours on this. I think it was about 2 hours in total, and there's probably about 4 or 5 hours with preparation and things. But I'm really happy with how this came out, and to be honest, I'm really happy with the process that I went through of this painting. And the reference photo was amazing. Shout out to Despina here in Athens. She does an amazing job capturing beautiful animals, and she's been kind enough to let me use a few of her photos, so thanks again, Despina. So I'll just mention again, if you'd like to watch the full version, it's on my Patreon and has some nice music, no rush at all. I think it's about 2 hours long, and it's from start to finish, and you get to see every single brush stroke and every single weird, unique kind of technique where I kind of destroy things and really move around the paints and just have a lot of fun with this, really. And as I mentioned, I also have a lot of exclusive content on Patreon that I don't share anywhere else, such as digital downloads, reference photos, behind the scenes vlogs, tips and tricks, Alla Prima painting tutorials that are ad free, and more cool stuff coming very soon. And I'll mention it again, if you'd like to own the original painting, then it's available on my site, and I've also made open edition prints as well, links in the description. Just want to say a massive thank you for being here with me today. It really does mean a lot. Just watching the process unfold. Really appreciate you spending the time with me today. Take care for now, and I'll see you in the next video.